Hey everybody. I already made this recording once, but I ran out of time before I finished, so I'm going to do it again, and so forgive me if I go pretty quickly, but I want to try and cover as much as I can. All right, so chapter 3. I looked at him, lost in astonishment. So the him is going to be the Harlequin. And here, the important thing to note is that Marlowe is lost in astonishment. This is an important thing. All of the stuff that Marlowe has seen to this point, the chain gang, the grove of death, the ship firing well into the coast, the helmsman's death, the attack, none of that has made him stop and pause the way the Harlequin does. There is something about the Harlequin that makes Marlowe freeze up like a computer, and he is lost in astonishment. There he was before me in motley, which is the jester outfit, as though he had absconded from a troop of mimes. He is enthusiastic and fabulous. His very existence was improbable, inexplicable, and altogether bewildering. These aren't negative terms. In fact, he says enthusiastic and fabulous. They are terms of disbelief. Marlowe is in disbelief. And honestly, of all the things you could have listed to be in the Congo, I don't think a jester would have made the list. Marlowe describes him as an insoluble problem. He's like a math problem you can't figure out, and it was inconceivable how he had existed, how he had succeeded in getting so far, and how he managed to remain, why he did not instantly disappear. So he's like insoluble, inconceivable, and why he did not instantly disappear. Marlowe is so confused by the Harlequin. It's almost like he feels like he's in a figment of his imagination. Now here's the Harlequin's words on this. This is the Harlequin talking. He says, I went a little farther, and he's talking about being in the Congo. He says, I went a little farther into the Congo, then still a little farther, till I had gone so far I don't know how I will ever get back. So he means his actual literal journey. His actual literal journey into the Congo. He went a little bit, then he went a little bit farther, and now he's like, I don't know how I'm going to get out because I don't really know where I am. Just because he wanders. That's what he does. But you can also think that it's kind of like his mental journey. He went a little bit far out there mentally, then he went a little further still, and now he's so far gone mentally, he's not coming back. He's gone. He is far gone. Then he says, never mind. So it's not even a big deal to him. He's not worried about it. If I were lost in the Congo, I would be very worried. The Harlequin is not. He says he can manage, and he really wants Marlowe to take Kurtz away quickly. This is important to the Harlequin. This is what his whole life is about. Then Conrad, through Marlowe, uses the word glamour, and he uses it 3 times. Glamour is a magic spell. It's a magic spell of appearance. It's supposed to make you look better. That's where we get the word glamorous. And honestly, glamorous means a whole lot of makeup applied to somebody and a lot of filters. That's all fake. So it's a magic spell of appearance. So, and he uses this word on purpose because the Harlequin looks happy. He looks so happy in his brightly colored robes and all of his little rags flying out there, but in actuality it is covering up his destitution, his loneliness, the essential desolation of his futile wanderings. The Harlequin is not happy, really, and he just wanders for years and years, sort of, Marlowe says, thoughtlessly alive. He just is there. He just is. And so then Marlowe says, I was seduced into something like admiration, like envy. Marlowe kind of for a moment envies the Harlequin because he has this unpractical spirit of adventure that had ever ruled a human being. I envied him his possession. I almost envied him the possession of this modest and clear flame. If you go back to chapter 1, when Marlowe talked about the blank map and how he longed to go to all those blank places, you have someone who is that child grown up to the extreme. So you have someone who is what Marlowe wanted to be, but 100 times over. And Marlowe sees that spark and sort of envies him, but just a little, not too much, because the Harlequin also worries him a little bit. He says, I did not envy his devotion to Kurtz, though. He doesn't like it. There's something, I must say that to me it appeared about the most dangerous thing in every way he had come upon so far. Kurtz is the one thing the Harlequin has found on his journey that is truly, truly dangerous. And it's dangerous for the Harlequin. So I'm going to skip about it a little bit. It says they came together like two ships becalmed next to each other. So he's like, they just happened upon one another. And the Kurtz probably let the Harlequin hang around because Kurtz wanted an audience. What good is it if you're ruling a nation and nobody is there to see how awesome you're being? Everybody needs an audience. Otherwise, what's the fun, right? And the natives aren't good enough for Kurtz to have as an audience. He needs a European. He needs somebody from outside the Congo to see him in his glory. So that's why he lets the Harlequin hang out. The Harlequin is his record keeper, is his sycophant, look the word up. And he talks about that sometimes they talked of everything. We talked of everything. And he's transported in his recollection. He's flashing back in his mind to those moments when he and Kurtz first had the chance to talk. He says, oh, I forgot there was such a thing as sleep. The night did not seem to last an hour. Everything. Oh, we talked of love too. And Marlowe, I think Marlowe here gets a little sassy. He's like, oh, y'all talked of love. And the Harlequin's like, no, not like that. We talked in general, like the idea of love. So it's like we talked about what love is. We didn't talk about being in love. It's not like that. And he says he made me see things. The Harlequin does this a lot where he repeats. I think he's doing it for emphasis, but it just ends up making him sound unbalanced in the long run. Then he threw his arms up. We were on deck at the time. The headmen of my woodcutters lounging nearby turned upon him his heavy and glittering eyes. I looked around, and I don't know why, but I assure you that never before did this land, this river, this jungle, the very arch of this blazing sky appear to me so hopeless and so dark, so impenetrable to human thought, so pitiless to human weakness, and ever... All right, so this right here is an on-the-spot question that you really should be thinking about. Why, after meeting the Harlequin, does Marlowe come to this dark thought? That's something that you need to think about. That's what the question is going to be asking you. So then we keep going. On the contrary, it appears their intercourse, this means a discussion. It does not mean what you think it means. Had been much broken by various causes. So lately they haven't been as communicative. Kurtz is sort of breaking apart from the Harlequin. Even though the Harlequin says, I managed to nurse Kurtz through 2 illnesses. So something here, like Kurtz has been sick. He probably has malaria. Malaria can do that. It can crop up and then get better, and then crop up and then get better. You can wax and wane. Like it doesn't really always go away. It doesn't go away if you don't treat it. So that's probably what's going on here. And now Kurtz is in his 3rd illness. So we get that number 3 happening there. 3s are, special. So he says, so he talks about that Kurtz wanders. He wanders alone through the wilderness, and sometimes he comes back. He's exploring, but he also comes back with Ivory, and he says that he discovered a lot of villages and lakes too. He did not know exactly in what direction. It was dangerous to inquire too much, but mostly his expeditions had been for ivory. So Marlowe says, how does he get the ivory? But he had no goods to trade with by that time. How is he getting the ivory? He's got nothing to trade. And we get a little bit of a scary thought here, because the Harlequin says, oh, he doesn't have anything to trade, there's a good lot of cartridges left even yet, he answered, looking away. This is important. He looks away. So he does not, he's ashamed that Kurtz is doing this. If you don't know what cartridges are, you should look it up. But he's ashamed that this is how Kurtz is getting the ivory. You don't ever want to speak poorly of your heroes, and the Harlequin is in the same situation here. He doesn't really want to speak poorly of his heroes, and you can tell because he begins to mutter, he fidgets, he had a reluctance to speak of Kurtz, even though he also has a mingled eagerness. He wants to talk about this man who is his savior almost, his God figure, but he doesn't want to talk about him because he's been doing bad things. You don't want to speak bad about your heroes. And he says, oh, but they adore him. The natives from around the villages, they adore him. The man filled his life, occupied his thoughts, swayed his emotions. What can you expect? He burst out. So we have an emotional outburst. He came to them with thunder and lightning, you know. And they had never seen anything like it. Very terrible. He could be very terrible. You can't judge Mr. Kurtz as you would an ordinary man. No, no, no. So he's admitting here that Kurtz came to them like a god with thunder and lightning, and you can't judge Mr. Kurtz as you would a normal person, because to the Harlequin he's not normal. To the Harlequin he is that god figure. And so the Harlequin is just overwhelmed with his desire to proselytize almost for Kurtz. He even goes so far to talk about this story here that I'm not going to get into about, he was angry at me. He was going to shoot me for something, but I still love him. If it sounds like an abusive relationship, it is. Kurtz is violent and has been violent to the Harlequin, but the Harlequin still loves him because the Harlequin worships him. And when someone is more than you are, you forgive them these things because they're more than you are. They do things you do not understand, and that's the Harlequin. All right, so I hope that helps you a little bit to get started. I know the Harlequin is one of the more confusing characters in this novel because honestly he confuses Marlowe, so it's only right that you are also confused. But if you start to break apart his actions and think about him in this way, it becomes a little more clear why he does what he does and how he got to where he is. All right, good luck.